So, good morning, everybody. Today is November the 5th. This is our second session of our series of lectures on ethical implication and AI. We are here as a team. My name is Roberto Zicari. Then we have my colleague Gemma Roig, that is there. Then we have Dr. Castentole, who's also there. And we have Dennis Feta, who's also there. So it's a complete team. And we're very pleased to see that we have altogether 30 people. And probably some of you or most of you attended yesterday introductory session. Dennis kindly put the video of the session plus copy of the slides and copy of the chat in our website. So if somebody missed it, you can anytime go back to that. But the idea for today, I think it is a kind of following. Number one, you probably have some questions. I see there are some questions on the chat, so we can go through the chat and then the team can brainstorm and give you answer. Second, if we can help you to form teams, if somebody is already thinking of forming teams, that could also be.
No, we lost Roberto, but normally he's coming back in a few seconds.
Say that again?
You were lost for...
Oh, I would suggest that I remove my wireless and then I just plug in my direct connection. I'm back in a second, so you can, if somebody wants to continue, I'm back in a second.
I would say we continue with Carsten because the most popular question I received so far was how do we actually register for the course? If you could repeat that again, that would be nice.
Yes, we need for the official registration to the Prüfungsamt, we will discuss with the Prüfungsamt how exactly this will be handled. In the last semester, it was done as even though it's not a written test, it will be a normal registration over QES, LFS for you, similar to written exams. And this then will also solve the issue who's really entitled to get the credit points. I see one question in the chat regarding the field of specialization. And from Jan, I assume he's referring to the old version of the master, or is it the bachelor?
You can unmute yourself, Jan, or if you prefer, you can just send.
It's bachelor. Okay.
Das ist echt mega.
No, this is probably not related to us. I will check which Kürzel is responsible for you in the Bachelor 2011. The issue is that you need to check under the QES the list of Kürzel. And if you find the according Kürzel in your Prüfungsordnung, then this is the relevant course, or maybe there are two courses, then you have a choice. But I will check for the Bachelor 2011 and will send an answer to the chat. And then I can hand over to Roberto so he can continue.
Okay, so thank you, Carsten. Why don't we do as follows? There's already a number of questions in the chat. I go from the beginning. And then I read the questions. We try to give you an answer. I mean, we are 4 people. We should be able to give some answer. And if this is good, then it's fine. If there's still some question, you can raise your hand. I mean, there's a possibility to raise a hand in Zoom, and then we can call you, and you can, either ask question or you can ask for more clarification. So there is a question from Chris. To everyone who say, I have some questions which I would like to ask. There are actually 4. When will we know many score from the midterm return we have after it was sent to you or at the end of the course? Okay, that's a very good question. We will actually make sure to send you the scoring, reasonably soon after you submit it. Obviously, it depends on how many people, how many teams, but definitely you need to have the score before so that you can improve in case or continue. So this is something that we need to discuss with Gemma and Dennis, but yeah, we will definitely make sure to give you the score of the midterm before. If the team objects, then raise your hand as well, right? If I don't see any objection from the team, I assume that that's okay. Then the second question is, what are the stylistic requirements for the report? Border size, size of text, font, etc. And do we have to write in Word or LaTeX? Interesting enough, you don't have to do any of this because Dennis will prepare a Google Doc, which is a Word document. So it is Word, but it's a Google Doc. So you don't have to create your own document. Once we have a team, you will have a link to a Google Doc, and then you can write directly in the Google Doc like a normal doc, Word documents, only is a Google Share doc that we can share with the team. So not only you can write, but we can also correct it. So all our feedback and correction, you will find it directly in your Google Doc. We used it last semester and it was very effective. In terms of border size and size of the text, we didn't think about that. Obviously, when I said 3 to 5 pages, if there's a need to specify exactly the size of the text, we can do that. But we assume some kind of normal, let's say A4 text with the font that is between 10 and 12. So don't use font 8, but don't even use font 20. So that's, and also if your assignment is only figures, it's not really good because then there's no text. But we can think about it. If that's necessary, we can maybe give more requirements on that. So the first question is, what should be the minimum length for the final report? That's what I already mentioned, is 10 pages. But 10 pages including the midterm. So the midterm is 3 to 5 pages. Then you continue working on that. So you don't create a new document, you continue working on that. And the final report can be up to 10 pages.
And it should be at least 9 or something, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, Dennis. 4, does each, each of the report, I assume, have to, or does this, okay, sorry, let me try to understand the question.
I think the question is, will there be one grade per team or 1 grade per person?
Oh, is it 1 grade per team? There's no individual grade? Well, of course, the team is graded, and then since, the grade is the same, then each individual will get the individual grade. Unless something happens that in the middle of the assignments or during the semester, one person pull out of a team. That could happen. Maybe he gets sick or he doesn't want to continue. Then only in this exceptional case, you can continue working as an individual. But in general, that would be basically that. Unless we have major reason to think that this is not correct, but I think this is at least the assumption for the moment.
Yeah, we can also see in Google Docs who writes what parts. So if one person is responsible for everything, we can debate if we want to give the same grade to both people, right?
Well, that's something that I wouldn't like to start controlling. So I think the team is responsible for delivering a report, and it's your responsibility to, that's why it's a team of 2 people and not 3 or 4, because with 2 people, my experience is that normally there's a good cooperation. When you start having more than 2 people, and also we are all in Zoom, it might be a bit difficult that everybody has the same contribution. So that was Chris. Let's go down. I think Jan asked a question that Carsten you just answered, right? I think he has to do with
yes, the answer is in the chat.
Oh yeah, the answer in the chat. Okay. Then Tibor Teske is replying to Chris, so I think it is good. Thank you. Then this is actually quite good. I like that. And then he said this is slightly different for this year, so I think we cover it now. Let me see. Let's go down. Okay, then Tibor is asking the following question. How do you intend to give out the grades to the absolvents of last semester? I'm not completely sure I understand what is meant with absolvents of last semester. There was no mentioning of any registration, neither in the lecture nor in the materials surrounding the course. Now we're stuck without any points. Okay, I assume that this person here is somebody who attended the course last semester, but you didn't get the credit points because you did not register at the Prüfungsamt. If this is the case, and it happened to at least 10 of your colleagues, please send an email in to the email that and Todo as well, and we will contact the Prüfungsamt, verify that you passed the exam, and basically inform them that they should give you the credit points. I think I remember your name, so I think this is exactly because there was, I think you, so please follow up with us. You don't have to do the course again. You can obviously do it if you are interested, but not because you need to get the credit points. So this is a case of last semester. And Carsten, that was exactly the reason that we have so many students that register to us, but for some reason they did not end up being registered at the Prüfungsamt, and they did all the course. It was a lot of work because last semester we had a slightly more heavy load. And then at the end, they got a mark from us, even a certificate, but they didn't get the credit points. So there are plenty of them. So Mr. Tibor Teske, just make sure that you send an email and we'll take care of that. Then Carsten is replying to, I think this is your answer. Do you want to say something about this answer, Carsten? I see you have an answer here.
Well, I think it's clear. You need to pick up this Kürzel and then search in your PO which Kürzel is relevant for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then Gemma is asking a question to me, which I like that because then we can start a conversation. 10 pages including the references or without the references? I would say 10 pages including the references. But if you have a reason to say that you want them separate, then we can do that, whatever you prefer.
I think including the references, but to be a bit more precise. Yeah.
No, thank you. You see, this is actually a reason why it's good to have this session, because then at least we clarify. When things are clear, then it's actually much easier also to work. Then we have a question from Laura Klassen. Isn't there any grading between okay, I understand the question will be, isn't any ranking between the grades, like 1.0, 1.3, 1.7, and so on? Yes, there is. Basically, what we showed yesterday was only the interval between 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, but if somebody is in between, there will be obviously 1.3, 1.7, 2.3, 2.7, as usual. So that's the answer. Then a question from Chris to everyone, but I think it's really to Dennis, is I still receive an error when accessing the Google Docs. I'm not sure whether it's the Google Docs or it's the Google Groups. So maybe Dennis, you have a better understanding.
Yes, I think it's the Google Group, and that is because, yeah, we're using Google Groups for communication. So you need to link a Google account to the email address you registered to that course with. If you didn't do that, you can also send an email with a Google account email address to the lecture email, and then I will add you to that Google Group. I hope that answers the question.
Well, they can always raise their hands so Chris is thanking. That's great. You know, then we have Chris, not Chris, but Chris. He says content unavailable. Am I missing something? I assume it's the same question as before, right, Dennis? Yeah. So this
Yes.
is the same answer. Then Tibor Teske is asking another question at 10:20, so exactly 3 minutes ago. I know it happened to at least 2. Oh, okay. So yeah. Okay. All right. So we had already a conversation. Thank you. So I'll make sure that I followed with the Prüfungsamt about that. Let me make a note so that this is not important, because since you also passed with the maximum vote, I'll follow up and then give the Prüfungsamt at least another 3 or 4 days, and then we see what happens. Okay. Then Dennis is basically answering the question. So now we have the answer is in written form. Actually, it's good that you're recording, Dennis, because all this answer will be then saved in the chat. So then we have a kind of Q&A. You don't have to write the Q&A, it's already here. Chris is asking, can I send you an email to the course email address? Yes, anytime, because you can ask, give feedback. You know, that's the reason why we
I think that's what's related to the Google accounts.
Oh, okay. Thank you. But you can also send an email to the address just to communicate. And then he's answering. And I think we have everything on the chat. Now, what we can do is to simply ask you to simply comment, ask questions. You can ask questions directly, raise your hands, or write questions, or whatever you think is useful for you, because we have time, which is kind of nice. You can ask actually the question in, hopefully in English, but if you have some difficulty in articulating verbally, you can ask in German, we translate it. You know, so it makes life easier. Or you can write it in the chat. It seems to be a quiet group.
Yes, that I can start with another remark. And
yes,
if everyone could please check their spam emails and check if they got an email from the Google group, because we would use that in the future for communication. And if you then send an email to, if you want to have a general discussion or something, you can also just send an email to the Google group, and then everybody will receive that. Oh, and another question is, how exactly do we register in QIS? I think that's again for Cost, because he knows most about that.
It's from Jing Yuk Lee. I couldn't exactly get how we could register by QIS. Can you show me how to?
Well, a registration for this course is needs to be enabled by the Prüfungsamt. It's something we cannot do, and it takes time. So it doesn't exist at the moment. And for the normal QS LFS, you need to register with your HRZ account. And once it's open, then of course we will send an email to you and inform you and put it on the web page so that nobody will miss it.
Which basically means that we are waiting till November the 10th, if I understand correctly, because that's the deadline we set for our internal registration. Then by November the 10th, we know how many people register from us, and then we pass this information to Carsten, and then somehow the proof of exam has to do a check, and then all of these people need to be officially registered.
Yeah, and there will be a deadline. The deadline for normal written exams is 2 weeks before the written exam. Since we don't have a written exam, there will be an artificial date for that, and it will be 2 weeks before that date, but I don't know the date yet. But it will be probably something in January, I assume.
Yeah, I assume that the experience that we had done with last semester shows that it would be very important that we have a detailed communication between you students and us to make sure that we don't have cases like the one that your colleague Thibaut Teske was experiencing, because you don't want that. You don't want that you did all the work and then the proof of some say you were not registered. So I think that requires maybe some information. While you're waiting for some maybe questions, so let me just go through the process of teams. Is anybody in attending right now who has already found a partner? So if there are already teams, Dennis, do you have a list of teams?
Yes, I already received some emails for teams.
Okay. If there is somebody currently in the Zoom meeting that would like to find a partner or whatever for the team, that's also an opportunity, because since we cannot give away names and information such as your student number, but we can certainly use a situation like this one here, so that if somebody is interested in offering to join a team or whatever, you can do it now. You can send information. I don't know, Carsten, how did you do it with your data science course?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question was, since I remember that you said you did the team building.
Oh yeah,
the data science. How did you do that? So just to see whether we can learn.
Well, the most teams formed by themselves, so they met in Discord. Like yesterday, we had this link. Someone generated already a channel, or they met in the Discord of the Lernzentrum, and then they informed me, and I set up the encoding group in OLAT, what we used in data science. And for those that couldn't find somebody, we basically used a Zoom session where everybody who had no partner just stayed in, and they tried to link until everybody found someone. And once they found someone, they left the Zoom meeting, so it was not so crowded and it was narrowing down.
Yeah, Dennis has actually posted on the chat, one of the students created a Discord link, which is probably helping some of the team to be formed. So he has it again there. So I would suggest you can now use this time to either chat among each other, go through the Discord link, and while you do that, maybe we could do some brainstorming on the kind of application, or let's say system, that you want to maybe have a look. So we have given some, well, Alicia Viert is asking, could we get an overview of what should already be included in the midterm report? This was actually pretty detailed in the yesterday session. So but I think it's a good question, because basically the idea is to consider this as one assignment. So the idea is that you find a scenario of use of an AI in healthcare, possibly in the space of helping emergency situation like the pandemic, but not necessarily only there, but in this space. And basically you have to think you have a project at the end. So the final report is the one that you get the complete, but ultimately you have to think you will watch videos or lectures, read material, and basically in the midterm, we are expecting that you have covered some of the things that you have learned until that point. So very likely it will be roughly divided in two parts. Like in the midterm, you have to understand what are ethical tension, ethical issues, dilemmas, have created a scenario of usage. So how is this software being used? Who are using this software? What are the expectations of the so-called actors, so the people that are involved? What processes are used for that? What output the software is producing, some technical detail, and the expectation of the people that are involved. So for example, if a medical doctor is using this software for helping decision, what kind of decisions are made, what kind of output, what kind of input. So that would be in the midterm. In the second part, when you start learning more about how to verify, then you might need to start looking at verifying that the claims that are made by a vendor or a website or even a publication, how would you verify? So and this could be because somebody has already done a study, so you're referring to that, or because you discover yourself, or maybe you look at the website and you figure it out that the way they communicate it is completely different than, for example, how the system works and things like that. So I think it would be half and half, but we can certainly guide you. So I think the idea is that we are going to send on a regular basis to the teams a guideline of what to do, so that you have a feeling of what you can do in the midterm and the final report. But there is not really a precise line. We want to keep it rather flexible. But I let also Gemma and Dennis or to comment on that, because this is a good question.
I think it would be a good idea to publish a short list with some requirements that should be at least included in the midterm report. And we will do that by next lesson.
We can do that.
Yeah, we can do that. And I also think that what is important is that, as Roberto said, you will see some lectures up to the deadline to submit your midterm report. So the content of the lectures also will help you clarify what is expected, because of course you should map what you have learned to the report related to the application that you chose to do the assessment or the study.
Yeah,
of
that's
course,
a very good,
yeah, exactly. So we don't expect that you will have concepts that are covered by the end of the lecture or by the end of the course included already in the midterm report, because of course you haven't learned that yet. And that's why there are two phases for this report.
Yeah, and this is also the reason why we are giving you an order. So as you have seen, one of the assignments for next week would be to start using the online web tool for the assignment of the European Commission. You know, and then you start playing with that. And you start looking at the question for the checklist. In this week, you're going to learn some of the ethical tensions and what is the difference between, for example, accuracy and fairness. Then you figure it out that fairness is not something that is easy to define. Then you're gonna check how this definition is meant in the case study you are looking. Maybe they don't have any, and that would be an interesting information. Or maybe they have one that doesn't seem to be right, or it fits into something you read. So you can start commenting, and it's a narrative that you can do. But we can certainly, as Dennis was saying, we can guide you through some, with the question, we're also able to be more specific and guiding you, making sure that if you have questions, better ask now or during the course and not ask at the end. So any question before will help you to set our expectation and your expectations so that they match together. So that's why we have this session. We can probably do some more of this session in between, so that if people have a reason to ask, we can do Zoom session just to say, okay, where are we at the moment? So then question, yes, I think this is quite good. We need to have by the 10th of November, the teams form, which is a bit of a challenge because, you know, if we have a deadline for the 10, the problem is that we are already starting with the work now. So this week you have to start doing some work. And I would suggest that you can start doing that individually, because watching the videos and reading the reports is something you can do individually this week. But by the end of this week, I think it would be very important for those people that are already registered that you find a team. For the new people that are registering, you know, in the next couple of days, they will need to be informed, Dennis, of the first lecture and this one here, so they can go through the set of questions. And if you have questions, they can ask. And I would say that that should be all. Then Marcel was said that there was a problem with the connection, but I don't know exactly what part you didn't listen, so quite difficult.
I think it was during the requirements for the reports, okay. But we want to publish something on that anyway.
Okay. And then Peter Stork said, availability of information about an AI system is obviously a key. I have no experience in healthcare so far. Do you have a list of AI systems in healthcare that are so well documented that we can reasonably investigate into them? And the answer is, this is one part of the job, is to, we do not expect you to be an expert in healthcare. We do expect that some of you have some idea about, actually in a team, when you form in a team, I think you might want to ask yourself and your partner, is anybody who did at least one course in machine learning? If somebody has done a course in machine learning, I would recommend that there are not two people that did machine learning in the same team. But we try to have people have done a technical course in machine learning. I think we're offering here at the university machine learning 1 and 2. Well, at least you should have done 1. If somebody has done data science, it's actually also not bad, but it's not really only connected to machine learning. So I think the idea would be find out if there is somebody, for example, in this list that is maybe studying business informatics or business computer science. And maybe they have some idea about healthcare. If that's the case, it's a good combination. One person that knows about machine learning but knows nothing about healthcare meets somebody that has some idea of healthcare, and that's, or business or processes or whatever that is not only technical. That's a great team. because a good team is a team where the two of you are not the same. Because, you know, if there are two engineers, they only think about numbers. If there are two philosophers, they're going to speculate on abstract things. Obviously, this is a bit difficult, but, and also we have bachelor and master students. So that's also an interesting combination. A master student, we assume, has a bit more experience than the bachelor student. It's up to you if you want to have a master and bachelor combination. I would say that it's more important to learn. So the idea is that to do that, you have to do a little bit of research in understanding how AI systems are currently used in healthcare. And there's plenty of material that are public. The material you can have a look. I think this is a very good question. So I like to spend more time and then we can do it around with the team. So how would you basically look for information? So the first is to look for scientific information. So there is something like Google Scholar or Archive or any kind of sources of peer review publication. So peer review publications are the ones that have been submitted to a review process and then published in either conferences or journal. These are serious, let's say serious in quote, serious peer review. When you start looking at blogs or notes or article or website, these are not peer review. So, you know, I can write, for example, in the blog and say, I believe that the moon is flat. I read a blog post of my colleague Gemma Roig, together with Dennis Vetter in the Journal of Dreams, as we said yesterday, and I believe the moon is flat. So nobody's going to check this statement. It's a blog. So a peer review means that there is a guarantee of some scientific quality. This is key in trying to sustain a claim. So what is a claim? A claim is somebody like, you know, Dennis comes and says, my product is amazing, is gonna solve this and is gonna be very good for everybody. So it's very accurate. It's a claim. So it's basically selling it. So in material. Then somebody might say, oh, I don't think so. And then the discussion doesn't go anywhere because you can write a blog post and say, I don't think so, but nobody's really has any facts. So suppose that Gemma Roig and Dr. Castentole has done a scientific paper published in the Journal of Science and Dreams that is basically verifying what the product of Dennis Vetter was supposed to be. And you find out certain facts and you publish it. This paper was accepted into a journal or a conference by peer review, so somebody review it. And then you can refer to that and say, well, there is some evidence. So this is called evidence. So you can always verify a claim because a claim is something that I need to be verified by checking who has done some work. Now, this could be, for example, a paper that is being published or a blog post that is referring to a paper being published, and then you have to distinguish between how credible are the sources. So this would be a way to, and then of course, you know, you can basically search for also your interest. Suppose that, you know, you have a personal interest in an area, you can search, or you can discover something, you say, I'm interested in that, let me know more. I want to tell you that we will probably give you in the course of the first half of the semester some material to read, which already a very detailed study on AI for COVID. But before giving you that, I think you might want to do your own investigation. And there are three kinds of, let's say, producer of AI for healthcare. You have big tech company, Apple, Google, and you name it. Then you have startups, so tiny little company that have a great idea and they end up producing a product. Or you have huge companies that are already in the medical space, like Philips or Siemens or whatever. They are now full of products with AI. And obviously, there's a lot of confusion because that's also important for you to understand. You need to do a little research on how medical devices are registered in Europe. In Europe, there's a regulation for medical devices. It is called level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Level 1 means is low risk, non-invasive. So for example, an Apple Watch, you just wear it. It doesn't do anything to you. This is likely, a device. In the moment where the Apple Watch has an ECG or something where you measure something about you and is going to the cloud, this is registered as a medical device. Depending whether it's 1 or 2 or above, if you're 2, you have to do a clinical trial. So it goes into the standard practice of any medical device that has to be tested in clinical setting. But for devices of class 1 that are low risk, this is not the case. So what does it mean? That you can, for example, if some of you, let's say, Mr. Lee and Miss Klassen, they get together and they say, I have a great idea and I create a product. And this product is helping discover diabetes in people. It's a machine learning to predict that. You create the product, you register it. If you don't have to invade, so if you don't have, for example, pigs and get blood, but you simply maybe have something that is touching you but is not invasive, you don't have to do any clinical trial and you don't even have to have any publication. If you do that, you're taking a big risk because then you're claiming that this is working, but there's no evidence. And that would be exactly the moment where you can start looking at claims versus evidence. I mean, it's a long answer to that, but if somebody of you wants to comment in the team, happy to do that. So that was a long answer.
Yeah, that was a very good answer. So
no, a very good question, actually.
Well, of course, it goes related, I guess. So I just wanted to add that or emphasize that the fact that one AI system used, for instance, in healthcare is not very well reported or well reported, this is part of the study. So if there is no available information, then it already raises a question, right? So this is also a system that you as a student or as a group could assess and also point out which are the missing parts and which ethical implications this could have because of this missing information, for instance.
Excellent. And in fact, when you start using this online tool that we just give you the information yesterday, when will be one requirement will be explicability, transparency, and communication. So suppose that there is not communication or the communication is not clearly explaining the reason or how they have produced an output, that obviously the information that is affecting a requirement of explicability. So I have a tool, it gives me a prediction, and if somebody is asking about why did you do that, there is no information whatsoever, neither published nor on the website, or if this information is a selling information, say it works. Basically say it works is not sufficient if there's no evidence. So then you can say, well, in this space, this AI system has a problem. and then when you do some kind of ranking, because with the online tool, you see there are some kind of visualization, you will say, okay, in my trustworthy AI definition, explicability is poor. Then you can give a recommendation and say, well, you need to make sure to communicate better, or you have to have a way to explain doctors that, you know, this prediction works like that, or simply you can't, and then there's a risk. So that was a very good point.
I think what might cause some confusion here is the task. So they don't need to find one system and then completely analyze it and say, okay, what they're claiming is 100% accurate. But the goal is more to find something and then analyze it with respect to its ethical problems, right? And to see how easy their claims they are can be verified or not, and what that means for potential customers.
Yes, and since, you know, you have 7 requirements from trustworthy AI, and the 7 requirements is a lot. So basically, it would be your decision to say, I have 7 requirements. Each of them is huge, and there's a checklist that helps you to understand what you need to get as information. So suppose that some of you say, I would like to really focus on fundamental rights. So then you start saying, okay, let me see, fundamental rights in this application is easy. I check, and it does not really seems to be a problem. Then you move forward and you say, okay, what about, for example, fairness and discrimination and accuracy? That would be in case. And then you can identify as many information that you can, obviously, since you're not part of the team, that are available publicly, to get your personal idea of what information is available that you can plug into these requirements. And if you are saying, well, I'm concentrating on free, then you should sustain information, and basically it is a process. So then there's a question from Ike who said, does the scope of healthcare in this course also include mental health? Absolutely, absolutely. For example, suppose that mental health in general and mental health also specific to consequences of pandemic, for example, you know, for sure, this is definitely the case. Then Dennis has a comment. Maybe you want to read the comment yourself, Dennis.
Yeah, so just for fun, I did a quick Google search. So if you're not sure how you can find companies that do AI with healthcare, you just go to your favorite search engine and just type in AI healthcare startup, for example. And then you will find a very long list already. And because most of those startups need to secure some funding and convince people on how great they are, they often publish some white paper, or if they're really good, also a peer-reviewed paper, just explaining how their system is working, what data they use, and why they are so great. And then part of your work is, of course, to see how realistic those claims are, and if you can find additional resources that verify those claims, or, well, maybe also show that it's not possible what they are claiming. And also, if it's not possible to assess something, that's also a result, right?
This is one way to do it. I have to tell you that last semester then we have a similar approach, and I was amazed to see how people were able to find all kinds of very good examples, not only in healthcare, because we had it slightly more broader in last semester, but this is one way. Another way that you could also start is to say, okay, let me go to Google Scholar and use keywords that you think are interesting for you. For example, machine learning and COVID, and see who has written papers on machine learning and COVID. You might end up discovering that there are maybe only scientific papers, but you might even discover that there are references to systems or tracking systems. So that's another possibility. Or you choose your favorite technology company and basically go through their website and figure it out what they offer. So you can go to Google Health or Apple Health, and you discover plenty of information there. Or you could say, well, who are the top in Europe, let's say, who are the top 10 supplier of medical devices in Europe? And then you will discover something like Philips or Siemens Health, or just to mention some of them, or GE Healthcare, you know, General Electric Healthcare. These are huge company, and they have normally sub-company only in healthcare. And then look and say AI and that. And then you will discover, for example, that Philips or Siemens or GE do have a lot of products, and they sell those products to a hospital. And there, since they're a public company, they need to be a bit more careful than a tiny startup, you know. So that's also another, and also depends on you. Are you more close to working with startups? Just look at startups. Or you're interested in big company, go to big company. Or you're interested in government. For example, how a government is handling products in a hospital. Now, for example, you can then figure it out, you know, in the health system, for example, in Europe, in a particular country, what do they use? Do they use any AI already? And then you are discovering. So the journey is for you to discover something that you don't know and put the things together. So that's exactly the point of this navigation. That's why you say you are on the road. You know, maybe you can also visualize it. You are, you know, or you're climbing the mountain, or whatever you like to think in terms of a journey. And hopefully at the end, you have been learning much more than simply what is a fairness metrics in machine learning. Of course, you know, fairness metric machine learning would be good that you learn what it is, but there's a lot of things that you are learning that is sometimes a bit outside the scope. In business informatics, I think this somehow is what you do anyway, although not all of you are in business informatics. Yes, so. I would suggest that the following, that we will inform you maybe in 1 week time when we do another, let's say, general Zoom session, so that I think we should have a Zoom session definitely soon after the 10, so that we have the list of all the teams. And it would be great if teams have already thought about some kind of use case that they're interested. If they have a question, or they can ask us, or somehow we could just handle it like that. I would say that unless there is any very important still pending questions, probably we should wrap it up like this. No, we just spend an hour. I think there's an hour Q&A. Dennis will save also the chat, so not only the link and the question, then you have the recording. So I would say, let me see, looks like we're good. So wish you a good rest of the day. Thank you for our team. Thank you for being here. And if some of you are in contact with some of the people that attended yesterday, you can refer that this would be recorded. And I think it's important that you try to come up with teams. So Dennis will have a status report, and by the 10th of November, we'll have a cut. and then we'll have an interaction with Carsten for the registration, and then teams will be officially mentioned. Now, here is the question. So do we want to number the teams, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or do we want to give them a funny name?
I like funny names more.
What do you think? I think a
We
funny
can
name
have
be...
both.
Oh, yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
mapping.
I like
Number
that. So,
one and then the name.
exactly. Okay, so we're going to number the teams ourselves because this is a unique identifier. And then you need to come up with the funny name.
Exactly.
Okay, so for example, team number 3, whatever name. Please, in a way that can be read. So please don't send something that it can be. Funny numbers are.
I think we lost Roberto for a second.
It's good to have a name because when you have a name.
Roberto, we lost you for a few seconds.
Okay, when did you lose me?
I think you were referring to the chat. Funny numbers?
Yeah. Somebody said funny numbers, and I said, oh, interesting. I don't know about funny numbers, but the reason why it's good to have a name of a team, because then you associate yourself with the team. It's funny, but it's a psychological thing. So even with a project, and sometimes in industry, when they start a new project, they give it a funny name so that the people associated themselves with the name. You can give the name immediately, or you can wait until you know what you're doing, but ultimately it's up to you. Carsten has sent something about happy number. Oh, wow, I didn't know about that. So happy number is not funny number, though. Or is the same? We don't know. It could be. Okay, so I would say thank you, everybody. Thank you, Gemma, Carsten, and Dennis, and thank you all. Wish you a successful week. For those of you who are already here registered, you have already 2 lessons to watch and 2 papers to read. And then we'll interact and send you an information when we do the next Zoom after the 10. And then you are on the journey with us on this ethical implication of AI for this semester. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye.